What is up, everybody? Welcome into this members-only edition of the Pack-A-Day Podcast Live Q&A. Thanks so much for being here. Always appreciate you guys a ton. Should be a really, really fun discussion. Looks like there are plenty of chats already in. You guys sort of know the drill by now, at least those of you who've been here before. It looks like we have a lot of new members here as well, though. So yeah, basically we're going to get to every single question that we possibly can. We'll try to be here for about 45 minutes. We'll go a little bit longer if needed, but we'll try to go for as long as we can possibly go answering questions. And like I said, there should be a ton to talk about. Free agency has been crazy this week already for Green Bay. Xavier McKinney, Josh Jacobs in, Aaron Jones, Devondre Campbell, Darnell Savage, John Runyon Jr., David Bakhtiari, who else? Jonathan Owens all out. So it has been a very crazy week already. There's a lot more to go. Green Bay still has holes on this team. They're a very good team at bargain bin shopping. They have been for a while, especially under Brian Gutekunst. So, it may not be these big name free agent signings that Green Bay still goes after, but they have the ability to find really talented players. And that's the hope, is that they still find a way to do that, regardless of how much money they spend on them. So that, and of course, the draft is coming up. 5 picks in the top 100, 11 overall. This is a team that still has the ability to get a lot better over the course of the next couple months. And that should be really exciting for everyone as well. I'm just realizing, I don't know if I did this as a members only. That's really funny because there's a lot of people in here. My guess is I did not put this members only for today. I don't think I ever updated it. But that's okay. If it's just a regular Q&A, we can do that as well. I'm just checking now. I'm just curious. Let's see. Content live. Yeah, I did a public one. So sorry for members that I guess I did a public Q&A today, but that's okay. We can still invite everyone in and we can have a lot of fun doing it. So that's all right. Enjoy, everyone. Everyone gets a bonus members only Q&A this week. So if you're not a member yet, sign up so you can get these every single week. All right. Jarrell, thank you so much for becoming a new Pack-A-Day podcast member. John, how many core special teamers are on the team currently, and how many more do you think need to be added to the team? This is a difficult question to answer, John, because you have a situation in which you don't know a lot of times which of your 53-man player, what your 53-man roster is going to look like at this point, and like who those players could potentially be. And also you could have a situation where somebody looks like they're going to be a core special teamer and like a Keyshawn Nixon and becomes a primary member of the defense. And then they're no longer a core special teams player. Rudy Ford was in that position. He was a core special teamer until he became a starter at safety. Played special teams a whole heck of a lot less after that. As of right now, you've got, let's just take a look here. You've got obviously your kicker, punter, long snapper. And right now at kicker, you've got Anders Carlson and Jack Podlesny. Punter, Daniel Whalen, long snapper, Matt Orzik. So you've got 4 legitimate specialists. Of course, not all 4 are going to make the team because they're not going to keep 2 kickers, but you have those, and then you would get to like Christian Welch is a primary special teamer. Tyler Davis is a primary special teamer. Corey Ballantyne is a primary special teamer until, again, they need him to start at corner, and then he's not. Benny Sapp, Benny Sapp and Zane Anderson are core special teamers. But then you could also get into situations like if Aaron Mosby, who's not at all expected to make the team, but guess what? If he makes the team, he's going to do it as a core special teamer. So those would probably be like your key ones. Christian Young, same thing, right? If he makes the team, it's going to be on special teams prowess. So there could be other players that get to that status. And like I said, you could start with that status and then become a core player and end up not being a special teamer. So it's tough to say, but usually how a lot of teams operate, and it's not always this way, but a lot of teams will say that the special teams coach gets to keep their long snapper, their kicker, their punter, and 1 core special teamer. And my guess is it's a lot more conversational in Green Bay. It's not like as strict as that, but they may have somebody that they keep, whether it's an Eric Wilson or a Zane Anderson or those type of people that ultimately, they stick around simply due to special teams. And we have seen a very big change in mindset. If you think in the past, and Green Bay still will keep a redshirt player, Caleb Jones is such a great example of that. But in the past, you would have those like bottom 5 roster spots for Alex Light and Raven Green and Tim Boyle. And there'd be like 4, 5, 6 spots, Vernon Scott, that would basically just be for young players who they thought they could develop. And instead, it's really transitioned over to those last 4, 5, 6 spots being more special teams oriented and players who can go out and be legitimate helps on special teams. So I would look at it more that way, is that there does seem to be a transition here. Just so, because I did open this to everyone today, I do have the ability to see who is a member and who is not. So I'm going to prioritize member questions today. Obviously, super chats will always go to the top as well. So super chats, and then we will go to member questions first. Preston, you mentioned you wouldn't sign Devin White. Is that because of a drop off in skill that you've noticed, or his character traits? Honestly, Preston, I have no idea what his character off the field stuff is. Just never been a big fan of Devin White. He's fast, he's physical, he's athletic, but the intangibles are not there, meaning really struggle with his I don't want to say like processing, but it's just extremely inconsistent. His ability to sort of read the game and just kind of know exactly where to be. There's too much inconsistency. And to me, it would be him alongside Quay Walker. You're asking for sort of a nightmare to happen. Not always in the wrong, or not always in the right gap. Some places in the wrong spot, or he gets over aggressive. I think in coverage, he really struggles at times. So listen, if they signed him, I'd be intrigued. No question about it. But he's been a super athlete playing in a really good system next to a phenomenal linebacker. And to me, the results have not been there. I don't know that there's a better situation he could have possibly been in than in Tampa, and just didn't love the tape all that much. So it has much more to do with that. Like I said, the size, speed, athleticism traits would be interesting. And it's not like there's really much else on the market at the moment. He got benched in Tampa last year. He legitimately got benched, and rightfully so. He was not playing good football, not somebody that you really would be concerned about if you're playing against. And for that reason, I probably would just pass altogether. But if they signed him, I'd be excited to look at the tape and see if there's any, positives we can find. He's a really good blitzer. So there's ways you could use him. But if there's any like big sort of contract idea, I would totally pass on that. Dylan, possibly the best part of the Packers youth movement is no one is eligible to hold the office of VP for a number of years. Dylan, I will say one comment on the entire situation, and that is my favorite aspect of the entire situation is that I get to focus solely on the Packers and free agency and the players on this team, and I don't have to look at any of that stuff. Doesn't even register on my radar right now. I don't care. I won't be talking about it, and I'm very, very excited about that. Always my favorite stuff to talk about is the Packers. Is like I would rather be breaking down undrafted free agent long snapper tape than talking about any of that crap. And that's what I'm going to continue to do. So that's my favorite aspect about this is we don't even have to think about it right now in Green Bay. I would have rather given Aaron Jones $8 million this season. Rather have given Aaron Jones $8 million this season than give Nixon 3-year, $18 million deal. Love Goot, but that may be a miss. I said something similar a couple of days ago with Perry and Alex, where if I had to choose, Nixon's 3-year, $18 million deal to give to Nixon or give that same deal to Aaron Jones, which he probably would accept because you can probably get the $7 million that you need to in the first year. I probably would have given it to Jones. That being said, you're looking at positional value. Corner is valued a lot differently than running back. Obviously, Nixon has the kick return ability as well. To me, the Jones deal would have been worth doing. To me, the Nixon signing seems a little bit aggressive on the monetary side, but I also understand, positionally why they're different sort of deals. And we don't necessarily need to like compare and contrast and compare them apples to apples. They're different players at different positions at different stages of their career, etc. But I understand the thinking here very much so. And I would have had no issue if they would have, like I said, I would have kept Jones, and I would have probably been a little bit more cautious with giving Nixon that sort of contract. But as I've said all week, what I want is an understanding of the vision, and I can understand the vision behind everything. So I'm okay with that, even if I don't agree with everything. So I have no major issues with what Goody has done so far this week. The Jacobs Jones thing is by far and away clearly the most interesting, in a way that we're just going to have to kind of keep that in a situation. We're just going to have to see how it plays out. All right. Let's see. While I like bringing Nixon back, I fear they will not attack nickel in the draft as hard now. Still think that Nixon is best served as a 4th or 5th corner and backup nickel, but maybe Hafley sees something we don't. One of my big takeaways with Nixon, as I was looking at potential free agent corners for Green Bay to sign, is that there's just not a lot of free agent corner, or just any corners in the NFL that play the slot at that high of a level. There are probably 8 to 10. And when you get those, you hold on to them, like doing everything in your power to keep them on your roster. But It is really hard to find really good slot corners. And Nixon played more snaps in the slot than anyone in the NFL last year. I did think he got better at the end of last year. And what the Nixon signing really allows you to do is go into the draft and not have to address it. So to your point, I could see them feeling that way as well. I still think they're going to attack corner. And while I think corners like offensive line right now in a way, where if you have to go into the season with Jair and Valentine and Nixon and Stokes and Ballantyne as your 5, you feel like you can probably get by with that, but you also know you need to improve and you need better depth. And I think that's how Green Bay will attack it. Like same thing on the offensive line, right? You feel good about Rasheed Walker and, Elton Jenkins, Josh Myers, Sean Ryan, Zach Tom, but you want better competition and you want better depth. And you don't ever want to go into the draft being like, man, if we don't get this position, we are screwed. And then it makes you reach for a specific player at a specific spot. And that's usually a bad way to do business. I think Green Bay will still attack corner. I still think they will look for upgrades. And I think there's a lot of really quality slot corners in this draft. And it wouldn't shock me if Keyshawn Nixon has to figure out a situation in which, he's got competition and beat out somebody that's a rookie on this team. So I think there's a lot of different ways they could go there. I don't think corner is going to be off their want list in any way, shape, or form. How do you see off-ball linebacker being addressed the rest of the offseason? Not much left in free agency, and the draft is not strong outside of the top 2 or 3 guys. Might a trade be on the horizon? I think this will primarily be draft. It wouldn't shock me if they brought in some sort of veteran. I expect Eric Wilson is a really good chance to be back. And then maybe they take a shot at a guy like an Isaiah Simmons, or maybe somebody else gets released and they take a look at it. So I think there's going to be probably something that they do to address it a little bit more, but I doubt it's going to be anything super sexy. Jerome Baker is probably the top remaining guy on that list. And then I do think they just attack it pretty aggressively in the draft with a couple bodies as well. Now, whether that's top 100 or how they go about doing that, we'll have to wait and see. But I do think this is going to primarily be maybe an Eric Wilson, one small veteran signing, and a couple guys in the draft, and then see them go out and compete in training camp. I don't see a trade there at that position though. With us re-signing Nixon at corner, do you think picking up a corner in the first round is still a possibility, or do you think we're going with Nixon as our main slot and targeting a lower round corner? Same thing we just discussed. I don't think it's going to be off their board. If somebody like Cooper DeJean is there in round 1 and that's the direction what they want to go in, I think they will. And then I think DeJean can come in and could he be that safety opposite, McKinley? Yeah. Or McKinney, excuse me. Yeah. Could he be the corner opposite Jair on the outside? Yeah. Could he be the slot guy? Yeah. But then you have the ability to kind of plug and play him at your weakest spot or his strongest spot, however you want to view it. And there's a variety of other corners as well that they could still attack in the draft. So they're going to go best player available. No question about it in my mind. And really, continue to look at how they can improve this team holistically and in a way that's going to be beneficial for the team as a whole. And the best way to do that is by taking the player that's best on the board, regardless of position. And the more you can go out and go into the draft without needing a bunch of players at a specific spot, the better you're going to be. And listen, having Keyshawn Nixon on the roster is a good thing. We can talk about like value of the contract and whether it's worth it or not, but having him back with his ability to be a corner, and if he does end up as like a number 4 or 5 corner, that's a perfect spot for him. A primary kick returner, can do punt returning, special teams, a lot of different things. So there's still a lot of benefits of that. Thanks, Wesley, for that. All right. A couple super chats came in. Skittish, I saw your tweet on tampering. Hilarious, by the way, but in all seriousness, what are your thoughts about the tampering rule? I mean, the biggest thing is, like, again, every single team tampers, right? All 32, maybe not Dallas since they didn't do anything anyway, but no, all 32 teams tamper. It's just how you go about doing it and making sure that it's not public that you had one of your executives or front office staff directly contact a player. That's usually where teams get into trouble. If there's something where there was a legitimate connection between a front office personnel member or a coach and direct contact with a player before the start, that's where things get iffy. Like, agents and GMs and everything are talking all the time. And like, agents are really smart about not leaking that stuff out or making sure that it gets public. But if there's a specific contact with a player, that's usually where teams get penalized. And it sounds like there may be some thought that Atlanta and Philly directly contacted a player from somebody in their organization. And that's where, again, you just have to be really smart about it. Ultimately, like, I wish there was a better way to do it, but to some extent, there always has to be like a deadline, right? Like, let's say as soon as the Super Bowl was over, like, you could start talking to free agents. but free agency wouldn't start until, the same time frame. Well, that sounds all good and great, but that then there are going to be teams reaching out before the Super Bowl, and that teams are still going to push the limit. There always has to be that date where it's something where, like, you can't contact a player mid-season and start talking to them about coming to your team. Like, you have to be really, really careful with that stuff. So for the most part, this stuff should be treated with a slap on the wrist. And because, again, every team is doing it, and I don't think it's a major problem that needs ultimate fixing right now, but there still has to become some limit to it. And you still have to do something if teams are literally reaching out to players in that capacity. Dylan, thanks for the super chat. Who has the potential to be our force multipliers? Possible video idea. If it's too much to go into here, praying for you ahead of your surgery. Thanks so much, Dylan. Really appreciate that. All right. So, I mean, this is another tough question to sort of answer, because, like, a quarterback, of course, is a force multiplier. The better that he plays, the better that your entire offense is going to play. Every offensive lineman has the ability to be a force multiplier one way or the other, because the better they block, the better your running game is going to be, the more time your quarterback is going to have, which is going to give your receivers more time to get open. So they are legitimate force multipliers. If you have a wide receiver like a Christian Watson who can stretch the field down the field, he has the ability to be a force multiplier because he is taking coverage with him and opening things up for every player around him. A strong running back like a Josh Jacobs, he has the ability to be a force multiplier, because if he forces more players into the box, that's going to open up things for tight ends and wide receivers down the field and have big explosive plays. Certainly would be beneficial to Jordan Love to have that threat at the running game as well, which is what we saw out of Aaron Jones at the end of last season and really opening up the offense entirely. Defensive line, Kenny Clark. I mean, everyone has the ability to be a force multiplier. Kenny Clark's usually the big one there. But again, the quicker you can get pressure, that's going to help everyone out in your secondary. The more you can stop the run and plug the middle, the more that's going to help out your linebackers. Edge players, same thing. If you can funnel everything back inside, that's going to help your defensive tackles and linebackers. If you can get to the quarterback quick, that's going to help out your corners and safeties. Corners, if they are covering longer, that's going to give your edge players more opportunity to get home. And then a safety like Xavier McKinney is going to give you the ability to play a different style of defense, because he's going to be able to erase a lot of things on the back end. So there's a lot of different ways that you can look at that. Off the top of my head, I think Xavier McKinney has the ability to be one. Kenny Clark has the ability to be one. Rashawn Gary, when he's playing his best. Elton Jenkins, Zach Tom to some extent, Josh Jacobs, Christian Watson, Jordan Love. I think those are all probably top of my list as players that I would kind of look at in that sort of mindset. All right, where do we leave off here? Autumn, thank you for becoming a new member. Joseph, thank you for becoming a new member. And Skittish, thank you for becoming a new member. All right, what kind of safety would be best to sign draft to pair with McKinney? And what kind of linebacker would be best sign draft to pair with Quay? Any draft prospects you think would fit? We'll get to draft more again as time goes on here, but safety pairings that I think make a ton of sense. I think Julian Blackmon or Jordan Fuller in free agency would make a ton of sense. It would allow you to be super versatile on the back end. I think both Fuller and Blackmon can play that post safety role as well as in the box. McKinney will play both. He'll primarily be post, but that gives you a lot of versatility at safety. Those would be two perfect fits. Linebacker free agent wise, there's just nothing left. Jerome Baker is probably your best option moving forward. So I think it's like a perfect 1A fit next to Quay. There are a lot of people that I think in free agency that would have fit next to Quay pretty well. They're all gone. They're all picked over. So Baker's probably your lone remaining option. And unfortunately, there's just not a whole heck of a lot left on the free agent market. All right, with the way free agency is developing, are we working towards being more able to draft best player available next month? So yeah, we talked about this already, Rob. I posted the starting lineup on Twitter the other day. Kind of just looking at it, if you're looking at, where the starters are at right now, right? You've got Jordan Love at quarterback, you're good. Josh Jacobs at running back, you're good. You've got plenty of wide receivers, your two tight ends in Musgrave and Kraft. You have a starting caliber offensive line, although you would love some competition there. You have starting edges in Smith and Gary and LVN coming up. Clark, Wyatt, Slayton, and Carl Brooks along the defensive line that you feel good about. McDuffie and Walker, definitely a weak spot. Your corners, you could use some competition, but you've got Alexander, Valentine, Nixon, and Stokes, so potential there. And then McKinney and then Anthony Johnson Jr. is probably your weak spot along the any starting group right now. Anthony Johnson Jr., maybe Carrington Valentine, Isaiah McDuffie, Sean Ryan. Those are spots where you'd love better competition. but you're getting much closer to being able to go into the draft and pick best player available and not really have to go aggressively towards needs. Remember, there will be guys that get cut at the end of training camp by teams. There will be trades throughout the season. There'll be guys you can pick up. Like, this is not something that, like, Green Bay doesn't have a game for a while. They still have the ability to fill out this roster in a variety of ways, but they're in a good spot right now, and that'll even be better after they have 11 draft picks and 5 in the top 100. Connie, how many quarterbacks do you think they will need to add to the room? I think they need to add one is probably my answer here. Specifically, probably a top 100 pick at that position. I think if you go into the season with Jair, Carrington Valentine, Keyshawn Nixon, a top 100 pick, Corey Ballantyne, and Eric Stokes, I think that's a good 6-man corner room that you can feel pretty good about. Now, part of that's predicated on Eric Stokes getting back healthy, Jair being the real Jair, closer to the all-pro Jair. Like I said, Valentine taking a step, Eric Stokes being healthy, Nixon, hopefully playing closer to where he was at the end of last year and maybe taking a step in the slot, your top 100 guy being good. And then, Ballantyne kind of just being the same as what he was last year as a core special teamer and a guy that can step up in emergency. But I think you feel good about that 6-man overall roster. But I think, again, I would love for them to have more competition, but from like a need standpoint, I think you're probably just looking at one. Rondale Moore for Desmond Ridder for the Arizona Cardinals. That's a really interesting trade. Sorry, my phone was going crazy, so I knew something happened. Yeah, that's a very interesting trade. All right. Again, for those of you who are coming in late, I did accidentally forget to set the members only chat to members only, which is an important part of setting it to members only. Thankfully, I can see who is members in chat, so I will be prioritizing member chats first today. Of course, super chats will always go to the top of the list, but we'll be focusing on members chats here. But everyone else gets to join, and if you have not yet signed up for a membership, now is a great time to do so. And usually, this is my first time ever, I usually will set it as members only. Hey, Andy, hope all goes well with your medical procedure. Thoughts are with you. Thank you so much, Joey. Lucas, what are your thoughts on the Pack's, what she said, suggestion of Isaiah Simmons? Yeah, he's one of the ones that are remaining on the list. This is another player that is extremely inconsistent. I know, Perry and I think Maggie talked about the potential of like a safety linebacker hybrid. To me, he's that's not him anymore. He's just a linebacker, period. He doesn't have any safety versatility, in my opinion, which is fine. But he's just a linebacker. Again, very inconsistent. You love the athleticism, you love the speed, but you're starting to get to a point in free agency where you kind of need to take a flyer on someone. And as far as taking a flyer on someone, not a bad choice to take a flyer on, in my opinion, in Isaiah Simmons. All right, Connie, how many more cornerbacks? Sorry, yeah, I think we just went over that. But yeah, just one I think is a need. I would love more. So I'm with you, Connie, that they absolutely could add more. I don't think you go into the season expecting anything out of Eric Stokes based on his injury history. And we don't know if he's going to be the same player really coming off of back-to-back seasons of injuries. And again, you're not making any decisions based on Corey Ballantyne. So yeah, I think there's a variety of ways that you want to look at it. And I think that they'll add multiple corners. It's just is it premium corners or is it like a couple guys you take a flyer on in the 7th round, which isn't nothing, by the way. Carrington Valentine was just a 7th round pick, but there'll be competition there. And yeah, we'll kind of see what happens from there. Cooper top 30 visit is big time. Yeah, I'm really excited to jump in the tape on him, Alex. I know he PFF from a statistical standpoint had him through the roof, athletically graded through the roof, and now he's a top 30 visit for Green Bay as well. Very, very excited to jump in on the study of him. New to being a member, however, I've been watching your videos for years. Have you lived in Green Bay your whole life? Great question. I was technically born in Manitowoc, which is 30 minutes north of Green Bay. I moved to Green Bay literally 2 weeks later, so I have no recollection of ever being in Manitowoc as a baby, but moved to Green Bay 2 weeks later, spent my entire time in Green Bay up until leaving for college, went to college at the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh, which is 60 minutes away from Green Bay south. From Oshkosh, then moved to Madison for a year and a half to 2 years, somewhere in there. Spent just under 2 years in Madison. From Madison, moved to De Pere, which is, in my opinion, basically Green Bay. From De Pere, moved to the Swamico area, which, again, is basically Green Bay. So outside of, again, being born in Manitowoc and living there for like 2 weeks, and having 4.5 years of college in Oshkosh and year and a half to 2 years in Madison, Outside of that, I've been in Green Bay my entire life and been in Wisconsin my entire life. Lunch with Andy, fantastic. Thanks so much for joining, Michael. Good luck with the surgery. Appreciate that, Alex. Yes, we talked about that one. You'll get like 10 plus new members from this easy. Haha. That'd be great. Everyone sign up. I will absolutely love it. Who would you pencil in next to Quay? I mean, right now, Isaiah McDuffie, right? Like there's nobody else. It's not going to be Christian Welch. It's not going to be Christian Young. So right now that is very clearly and obviously Isaiah McDuffie. And then it just depends on what competition McDuffie gets. He'll get some. I don't think this is just going to be Quay and McDuffie and nobody else that could compete. I think it'll be Quay very clearly as one of them. McDuffie will have every opportunity to earn a spot. And then it's going to be dependent upon who they add in free agency and draft in the draft. But right now, since we don't know who those other people are going to be, very easy to put Isaiah McDuffie in that spot. Dylan, we did that one. We did that one. All right, Braden. With this youth movement, do you think they target D-line and edge, assuming they let go of Preston and Kenny this next offseason? It is absolutely something that will be an option for them. Very, very much so. I think edge is actually a very sneaky one, or defensive end, however you want to look at it now, is a very sneaky one. And the fact that Preston is getting there, right? Like you're probably, and I've said this for like 3 years now, but probably a year left of Preston, probably not a ton more. So you've got Preston that could be gone next year. But even right now, right? If we're just looking at it, Kingsley's coming off the injury. You don't know when he's going to be available and if he's going to be himself. I don't know how much you want to, put stock in Brenton Cox at this point, who they never really felt comfortable playing a season ago. You have three: Preston, Rashawn Gary, and LVN. As we said, Preston probably 1 year left. Rashawn Gary sort of wore down at the end of last year and already has had a major ACL injury. He's not going anywhere. He's going to be here a very long time, but still. And then LVN, some solid upside in year one. He showed some flashes, got a little bit better as the year went along, but I would say still arguably did not live up to expectations in year one. And this is a defense that is very much predicated on making sure that those edge players can get to the quarterback. And I do think that there's probably a little bit of Jeff Hafley who wishes he had a little bit more of a speed rusher to play with as well. Do not be surprised at all if they take a defensive end / edge rusher in the first 3 rounds. I would not be upset with that at all. Defensive tackle, I can never have enough of those guys. And I really like all 5. But Kenny Clark is getting up there in age and is showing some signs of decline, no question about it. And this could be his last year in Green Bay, unless they work out an extension. And Devontae Wyatt, similar like to LVN, signs of upside, but has not lived up to expectations so far. Colby Wooden, you're not going to make any determinations off of that. Like he was solid in a handful of snaps last year. TJ Slayton will be a free agent next year. And then, that's the Carl Brooks you're excited about, but he still needs to take a jump if it's anything other than just like a really nice rotational player. And by the way, I love Carl Brooks. I think he's going to be really good, but you have to sort of prepare yourself. So you look at, and Green Bay loves drafting a year ahead, right? You look at 2024, right now you've got Wyatt, who will be on, you'll have to make a 5th year option on next year, but you've got Wyatt, Wooden, and Brooks as your only 3 interior defenders right now under contract in 2024. So that both of those positions are sort of like under the radar. Do not be surprised at all if they would go in that sort of direction. All right. Joey, still not quite over the Aaron Jones release, partly because we all saw how good he is. His run style worked with the type of line we have. Do you feel Jacobs is similar in that regards? I don't think they're like apples to apples, like exact type of players, but I do think Josh Jacobs has the ability to do a variety of different things. And I think he has the ability to sometimes make something out of nothing, although that was probably my biggest criticism of him in 2023 on his tape, is Aaron Jones had the ability to make those magical moments where there was no run blocking and Jones just did crazy stuff. And I didn't see enough of that in Jacobs in 2023. Probably one of the biggest things I could say that I was a little bit disappointed on in his 2023 tape. It's all over his 2022 tape where he'll make a lot of people miss. And a lot to Jacobs' credit, there were a lot of times in 2023 where he would make 2 or 3 players miss, and then there were just too many. The run blocking was that bad. But I do think Jones was a great fit. I do think Jacobs, though, is going to fit in perfectly with this offense. I think even though Green Bay's run blocking is not great unless they make some upgrades there, I think just the fact that at offensive line, at quarterback, you've got Jordan Love, all the playmakers. I don't think they're going to be able to stack the box as much against Green Bay. I think those things are going to be legitimately beneficial. And I think are exciting for, I'm sure, Josh Jacobs, who also has only had one playoff game in his career, has not been a part of good teams. I think this is going to be a totally different experience. And personally, I'm very excited to see what Josh Jacobs looks like in Green Bay this upcoming season. All right. What other member chats do we have here? What are the odds that Matt LaFleur forgets that we have Jacobs the way that he forgot about Jones? Well, it really depends maybe on who the number 2 running back is, but I don't think that he's going to necessarily forget about him, but there'll probably be games that it comes up here and there, just like it did with Jones. And then the big thing is I still don't think they probably want him to have all that wear and tear either. And ideally you get a number 2 back in that can spell him and give him some time off so that you don't have to run him into the ground like the Raiders did a couple seasons ago. So I don't think they'll forget about him, but ideally you would give, have somebody that could spell him and not have a major decline, really like we sort of saw with Jones and Dillon last year, where when Jones wasn't on the field, the playmaking just went completely out the window and you just didn't even have that at your disposal. Mike, thank you so much for becoming a new member. I can't remember if I read this one already, David, but thank you so much. I really appreciate that. For those of you who don't know, acid reflux surgery on Monday. It's only about a 2.5 hour surgery, so nothing too crazy. Go in very early on Monday morning, stay in the hospital overnight. We'll have episodes uploaded for you guys for the first, handful of days, hopefully for next week. Hoping by the end of the week, I'm ready to be back and going, but you will see probably a little bit difference next week in some of the content or lack thereof, just with me recovering from everything. But I really appreciate all the support, guys. Only 4 thumbs up. Hit the like, folks. Appreciate that, Rob. Did I miss a bunch here? Okay, I don't think I did. All right. Do I think Christian Watson is in a boom or bust season this year? Not quite yet. Not quite yet. I think year 4 will definitely be that for them. I think this is a huge season for Christian Watson, though. This is a huge season for kind of all of these wide receivers, in a large part due to the fact that they have, in my opinion, 5 really legitimate guys. If you want to be one of the guys that's on the field consistently and getting a lot of passes your way, you better be healthy and you better be on top of your game. And if you're not, if Christian Watson just isn't, or has like another injury, or just isn't on top of his game, struggles with drops, Dontavian Wicks, Romeo Doubs, Bo Melton, Jaden Reed have the ability to just pass him by. The same kind of goes for everyone. If Reed or Wicks or Melton or Dobbs or any of those guys take a step back, any of those other guys have the ability to step up and take their spot. From a Packers standpoint, you love the competition at that position, and that's something that's really, really fun to think about. But for those guys, the pressure's on all of them. And to your point, I do think it is more on Watson than anyone else because of the injury stuff. I also think the best stuff that we've seen from any of those wide receivers have been some of the stuff that we've seen out of Watson when he's really been on his game. And if you get him to a different level, it takes the entire offense to a different level. So I'm excited about Christian Watson still. I do think this is a really important year, but there's no 5th-year option for him. He was a 2nd-round pick. This is his 3rd year. He's going to have the next 2 years to prove himself. That contract year is probably even more important for him, but this is no question about it, a very big season for Christian Watson. Really, like I said, all these wide receivers. Preston, is this draft deep enough where you could see Green Bay move down from 25? Also, what positions do you think they'll take in rounds 2 or 3? As lame and cliched as it is, Preston, I very much do think they'll go best player available. We know a lot of the needs. I do think they're going to go very aggressively on offensive line in this draft. It would not surprise me if they took 4 offensive linemen in this draft, sincerely. They'll take more safeties. They'll take a corner at least. They will take off-ball linebackers. We just talked about edge and defensive tackle are still very big possibilities. Like they have a lot of flexibility to go in a variety of different directions. This is still a roster that needs rounding out. There's no question about it. But yes, they can move down from 25 and pick up more picks. It wouldn't surprise me if they move down from 25 into the 30s. And then it wouldn't surprise me if they took some of their 3rd round picks and moved them up into 2nds or 4th round picks and moved them up into 3rds. And maybe just kind of condensed it where you had maybe 6 picks from pick 30 to pick 100, somewhere in there. I could see them doing something like that too. But either way, they're going to have a ton of flexibility, and it should be really fun to see how Brian Gutekunst maneuvers through the course of the draft. Ian, thank you so much for becoming a new YouTube member. Appreciate that a ton. Paul, Andy, how competitive is the NFC North this year, and where will we sit by the year end? Best wishes for your surgery. Appreciate that, Paul. We need to see how the rest of this offseason plays out. But to me, Minnesota, no Kirk Cousins, is going to take a significant step down. By the way, I will say this about Minnesota. I know Bears fans and Vikings fans just like to say that I, rip on them because I'm a Packers homer or whatever. I really don't. I really like watching really smart GMs do really smart things, regardless of what teams they're on. And obviously, I'm cheering for the Bears and Vikings and Lions to do really dumb things. That would be nice. But I think the Vikings have done some things not so great, and clearly they're a bit in no man's land at quarterback, and they're going to suffer from that. I do think Jonathan Grenard and Andrew Van Ginkel, the two edge players that they signed, are going to have a really big impact in Minnesota. Now they lose Danielle Hunter, which is going to be a blow to them, but I think overall the move from Hunter and Davenport to Grenard and Van Ginkel is going to be a really positive step for them, but they're going to take a major step back with no Kirk Cousins and, going with Sam Darnold. And they're probably going to have to be super aggressive in trying to find a quarterback in the draft. So they're going to drop down. Chicago, I'm going to say this as a football fan, I'm really disappointed in from a football standpoint. They have $100 million to spend last year. They did it stupidly. They had $100 million to spend this year. They did it awfully so far. And their vision is terrible at the moment. That being said, their trade last year to get DJ Moore and the number 1 pick in this year's draft to go draft Caleb Williams. They have the ability, if they do it well, and so far it has not started well this offseason, to aggressively make a really big jump, in my opinion. I have the highest that you can possibly be on Caleb Williams. I watched every single snap of his from 2023. I am in love. He's, in my opinion, the best quarterback prospect that I've ever watched, better than Andrew Luck, better than anyone, and better than anyone I've ever watched in my time doing this. That's how highly I think of him. Doesn't mean he can't bust. Every quarterback can bust. And part of that is going to be where you end up. In Chicago, historically, not a great place to end up, but I could not be higher on Caleb Williams. Also, I think there's a good chance that they could potentially move up and get one of those top 3 wide receivers. Neighbors is literally like my favorite player in this draft outside of Caleb Williams. He is a absolute stud. And if they get him or Roma Dunze or Marvin Harrison Jr. to go with DJ Moore, like I said, they could make an aggressive jump very, very fast. So they have some resources that could make things interesting. I still think this is Detroit and Green Bay. And 1-2, 2-1, A, B, whatever you want to look at it as. This to me comes down to a division of Detroit and Green Bay. I think both, make the playoffs. I think Minnesota finishes 4th. Chicago finishes 3rd. Obviously, injuries decimating either Detroit or Green Bay could change that. And how Chicago plays out this offseason could change that. If Minnesota does take a quarterback and gets a JJ McCarthy and he ends up just being really good right away, that could change that. If they draft Caleb Williams and he just is nowhere near what we expect and ends up being a bust, that could change things. Or if he does end up just being Mahomes right away, that changes things. But as of right now, I'd put Detroit and Green Bay still 1-2, Minnesota to 4, and Chicago to 3. Ian, thank you so much. Really appreciate you becoming a member. That means a ton, bud. Joey, really hope the focus is on O-line. Now that McKinney is signed, it is one of the deepest positions. Will help both Jordan and Jacobs. Please O-line. Sick of the cornerback talk. Here's the thing I will say, Joey. If you've heard me talk at all this offseason, O-line is still 1A on my priority list. It doesn't mean it has to be in pick 25 though. And if they find an awesome cornerback at pick 25 and that's the choice, I'll have no issue with that whatsoever. I just need to see, all right, let's see if we can get an offensive lineman in the 2nd round, in the 3rd round, in the 5th round, and really supplement that via, the other picks in the draft. And Green Bay's had a lot of success. Look at their offensive line right now. Rasheed Walker, 7th round pick, right? Elton Jenkins, 2nd round. Josh Myers, depending on what you view of him, 2nd round. Sean Ryan, 3rd round. Zach Tom, 5th round. And you can go back. Mark Tauscher, 7th round. Chad Clifton, 2nd round. Mike Wall, 2nd round supplemental pick. Marco Rivera was not a high pick. Frank Winter's not a high pick. Mike Flanagan, not a high pick. JC Treader, not a high pick. Corey Lindsley, I think, was a 5th round pick, 5th or 6th. You have to go back to Bulaga as a 1st round pick. Meanwhile, Derek Sherrod, 1st round pick. This was largely due to injury, but did not work out. Jason Spriggs, high 2nd round pick that they trade up for, did not work out. So don't focus on where they draft a player, just that they draft the players and you're hoping that they get the right ones. So if it's 25, and even though offensive line is 1A on my list, if they don't take it at 25, that's fine. There's plenty of offensive linemen. Like you said, it's a very deep offensive line draft and they can easily find that at other spots too. And have been very, very good at doing so. Andy, great show this morning. Love your analysis breakdown. You are amazing. Just joined as a member today after your show. Ian, AKA MD Packers fan. Ian, like I said, thank you so much for joining, and thank you for the super chat. All of your support, by the way, guys, does mean a ton. It allows me to do this full time. Hopefully you guys have seen a difference from me going full time and just a lot of the extra bonus content and members Q&As and spending more time on breakdowns and things like that I've been able to do. The reason I'm able to do that is because of your patronage and your support. So without that, it's different. Obviously I still have a full-time job and things go a little bit differently. So it does really mean a lot to me. It supports me in a variety of different ways, supports our podcast team in a variety of different ways. So allows me to, have Tyler Herrick, who does a lot of the shorts, and allows me to have really fun, thumbnails on the videos to hopefully bring in more viewers and all those sort of things. So it all is, it allows me to get brand new microphone, brand new computer, brand new HD camera, better lighting, better sound system, and all those sort of things. So if you want the show to continue to improve, if you want it to stay as is, meaning like, me being able to do it full time, that stuff does really come in and make a huge difference. All right, Shane, I'm still raw about 33, but the more I look at it holistically, this free agent theoretically fixed our red zone run game and our safety can tackle. Listen, the McKinney thing is an unbelievable no-brainer home run. It is such a perfect fit for the back end of that defense. I'm almost disappointed to an extent that we haven't been able to spend more time talking about McKinney. We will, I promise. As I mentioned on the show this morning, I will go through and grade every play for Jacobs and McKinney from 2023 and give them a grade not similar, exactly as I do for every player all throughout the season. So I will go through and watch every single snap and grade every single snap for both of those guys, and we'll do a full breakdown of it. Unfortunately, it's not going to come this week because this week is insane with all the stuff that's going on. Next week, I have surgery, and then it's going to probably take me some time to get back in the swing of things. So it is going to be a little bit, but I promise you we will get there and do a full, huge scouting report and breakdown to everything that both of those guys put on tape in 2023. And I already watched every single Josh Jacobs run from 2022 and 2023. So I have a really good feel for Jacobs already. I'm going to go through and watch more McKinney, hopefully today, probably more tomorrow, this weekend, or maybe just as I'm recovering from surgery. But either way, that will come too. All right. Ian still would like to see another veteran safety with what's left. Who would you go after? Good luck with your surgery. Thank you, Ian. Jordan Fuller and Julian Blackmon are the two. We talked about them a little bit already, but those are the two that I think are on the market. Still really good. I mean, Justin Simmons would be fun, right? I don't think they're going to go in that direction, but yeah, if all of a sudden they paired Justin Simmons with Xavier McKinney, like sort of like the two ideals, scenarios, that would be a fun direction to go in. I think it would probably be overkill for the price that it would take, but I think you could probably get Jordan Fuller or a Cameron Curl or a Julian Blackmon, excuse me, one of them is probably going to be a decent cost, and that would be a great tag team partner with Xavier McKinney on the back end. All right, friends, that is probably going to do it for me today. I just want to check these super chats really quick to make sure I got all of them. Devin White, Youth Movement. Yep. Aaron Jones, tampering, force multipliers, boomer bust season, moved down from 25. Ian. Yep. All right. We got to all of those. Thank you for everyone who became a new member today. Sorry, like I said, I did prioritize all the member chats today, but sorry to the members that maybe get a little bit more attention than usual in a members only chat, but this was still a lot of fun. We got 342 people in here on a random noon Thursday chat. So this was a ton of fun. And hopefully for those of you who have not signed up for memberships yet, this is what you get every single Thursday at noon. And sometimes we change the time a little bit, but definitely worthwhile. $3.99 per month is the cheapest membership out there. And it definitely pays off. You get all the videos in advance, members only Q&As like this, access to bonus content, and so much more. So check out those Pack a Day podcast memberships. Thank you all for being here. I will see you all soon. Happy hour tomorrow. Happy hour tomorrow is the plan right now, 4 p.m. on Friday Central Time. But until then, and as always, go Pack Go.